On Tuesday, February 27th this year, President Bola Tinubu launched the Expatriate Employment Levy, a government-mandated contribution imposed on organizations which engage expatriate workers in Nigeria. This policy is subject to certain exemptions, and its stated objectives have been spelled out, including the promotion of skills transfer and knowledge sharing, balancing of economic growth and social welfare, enhancement of collaboration between public and private sectors, as well as the need to address demographic shift. Professor Okey Ikechukwu is Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. He joins us now to discuss this new move by the federal government, its expected impact, and how it can be effectively implemented. Good to have you on Newsday, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, let's start with...
Glad to be here. Yeah.
We're glad to have you as well. Let's start with your thoughts, on the Expatriate Employment Levy launched by the federal government. Is this a good idea? Do you agree with it?
It is a very good idea. It's not new. As we speak, over 60 countries have employed it. UAE and Oman was 2017, Saudi Arabia and I think what other country was 2018? Even the UK, 2-3 years ago, they did the same. We need to understand that when you speak of expatriate employment levy, you're talking about income to the government through companies that choose to employ expatriates. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a global practice. There's been some negligence. And if anybody is familiar with the industries, generally, you know there's also a good platform for abuse for those who will want to scale it. So contextually, it's very good. At this particular time, it's even a desperate need because it reduces foreign forex outflow. It eliminates the dishonesty of people who work without paying and the money is moved out of this place. And if you consider that as an expatriate, doing what may come close to a menial job and pay $2,500, and for the same kind of job, probably Nigerians are paid $110,000, and that money is being moved out of this economy, you know the implication. So it's a good idea, it's timely, it will increase income, it will have other advantages, which I'm sure you'll want to bring up.
Okay, so Professor Ikechukwu, now the introduction of this expatriate employment levy by President Tinubu has, of course, sparked these discussions about its potential impact on the Nigerian workforce. And the EEL in itself is positioned to measure the balance between economic growth and social welfare, and as well as the demographic shifts, and encourage foreign companies to employ more Nigerian workers. But the argument here is Nigeria in itself has not boosted the skill set of its current workers. The education system is still subpar. So if we've not been able to do this, isn't it a situation where we're putting the donkey before the cart?
Well, the important thing is that there's the donkey and there's the cart. So you choose, if the cart is not in place, mount the donkey, provided you're traveling. Let's put it in context. I have 9 children. We need to make egusi soup, we need to make miyan kuka, we need to make amala and ewedu soup. But the children are not yet experts in making that soup. And the solution I've designed is to employ people permanently to be making the soup for me when in fact my people can learn. When in fact, if those people are not around, we're forced to master it. That's an analogy I want to use, and I'll get back to the substantive issue you raised. The issue on the table is really not whether or not expatriates are being employed. It's the fact that the skill sets that are available here, despite our educational system, and I'm in a position to say how terrible that is, the skill sets provide a substantial percentage of the kind of labor they employ. You bring in a technician here, you employ him as an engineer, and then he's paid as an engineer. And you watch Nigerians of the equivalent capacity. Why, for instance, will some companies employ welders? And I'm talking about welders from outside Nigeria. So if we drive the argument, our education is weak, it is, certainly. But make demand on that system, you'll find more and more progressive and growing number. So the argument actually damages itself by unintentionally suggesting that the solution to limited capacity is the recruitment of finished products from all other places. What prevents companies? There are companies that are doing it, employ people, send them for training, and they come back, your overall financial rollout out of this country is lower. So I understand that argument, it's just that it doesn't have a leg to stand on, with all due respect to those who advance it. It's an extreme position. Oh, you know, our education is weak. Our education has not always been weak. You know, you should employ experts from outside the country. Check, nobody's quarreling with that, but please, in doing that, do a detailed disaggregation and find out. That's why the collaboration involving immigration, Ministry of Interior and Finance is good. Find out the qualification of the person you're employing as a professor here and paying in dollars. And look at those who have the same qualifications, who are even better on the job and what they are getting. So it's for us to agree that, oh yes, we shouldn't act in such a way as to appear to be saying there should be no expatriate quota. But economic realism is demanded in times like this. Because the same argument you might as well advance the same argument against the UK and all other countries, over 50 of them that have deployed the same EEL. So why are you doing it? Can't you see that these companies are bringing in expatriates? It won't fly very high. No. If it does fly at all, that argument, I mean.
Professor, I'm wondering, if you're not a bit curious about how the government arrived at the figure, that will be paid by employers, $10,000 for other categories of expatriate, $15,000 for directors. Isn't this a bit too high in a country where businesses are already struggling for survival? Some people see this as a death sentence, for some businesses that need the services of expatriates in Nigeria. What are your thoughts?
It is no death sentence. If you find that there's no air in a room, you get out, or you find a way of ventilating it better. Now, the $10,000 or $15,000 is not arbitrarily imposed. It's connected with the specific income level of the individuals and skill sets concerned. So if you're paying so and so this amount per year, this is the amount you'll pay to government as expatriate levy. The reason is simple. You will either hurriedly and quickly secure the capacity. First, look for the capacity here in Nigeria. Certainly you will find, even if it's not to the same degree, nobody will tell you to invest in capacity building, training, send them to a country for 2 years. You can decide, okay, with this new rule, let's face it. You recruit some people who have some let's even assume limited capacity in the respective disciplines or skill areas. You send them out for a training of 6 months, 3 months in some cases if it's welding, 1 year if it's a more elaborate distance. That investment of 1 year saves you the trouble of paying X amount when they come back. So you endure it, you pay your EEL, you deal with EEL for, say, look, after 6 months, I'm out of here. This is not on. Why, for instance, do we have nearly all of Microsoft computer-related things in Asia, particularly in India? Cheap labor. And so you're creating jobs for them because your environment, the pay system is such that your profit will be less. That is the logic at their level. The logic at this point is you want capacity, you don't find it here, but you're migrating income from here in hard currency out of Nigeria, depleting everything, including balance of trade. If you're seriously remaining in business, get people who can do the job here. If there are such wonderful skills that you can only get expatriates to do it, we have no quarrel with you, but these are the conditions. And every modern state gives conditions under which businesses can be run. I've had the argument that, it will damage ease of doing business. You're driving away investors. Let's get real. How many investors have they attracted since all these years that this thing has been there? You see, when we throw up these, will I call it knee-jerk observations, they get taken seriously without evaluation. You're driving people away. It's not helping ease of business. What has ease of business got to do with who you employ in terms of expatriates? Not that it has nothing to do with it, but the logic must be taken. And you ask yourself, those who are saying this, whose interests are they really pursuing? Yes, Manufacturers Association has spoken. Go and take inventory. Confirm. In fact, there should be some kind of independent evaluation of capacities. That's why it is good that immigration is involved, because the details with which anybody comes into the country who is a Nigerian, part of it is captured as data. And further verification can be made from the home countries. And if you look at most of those coming from the Middle East and Far East, I don't want to be too specific, you will know How, for instance, are companies run here that are run by Asians? Let's not push the point, but the truth of the matter is that a nation, any nation that is interested in saying, here I am, will do so. Then others will say, there you are. Who has taken the UK to court for this reason? The UAE, with all its liberal policies. Why did it take that decision in 2017? And that's about how many years ago? 5, 6? The world is a regulated world, and all the countries shouting, there's always a bit of protectionism. But in this instance, that's not even what it is. If you want to eat chicken, pay for it. So you want only expatriates. We have no quarrel with it, but these are the conditions. And it's a condition that subsists in many other countries, certainly not in all. But the decision of a modern state is the responsibility of the government governing it at any time, provided both national interest is protected and there's no general uproar created in the international community because of it.
Okay, Professor, but if we talk about the principle of reciprocity, we also know that Nigerians are expatriates in other countries. If we find a situation where other Nigerians are now forced, because of what's being done in Nigeria, or see an increase in their own levies as well, I mean, isn't this something that should be considered before it's implemented fully?
It should be considered. I'll move from what do you call it, free trade to what you just said. We're encouraged to allow free trade, let people move in and sell what they like, and then we all also sell in our own. My friend, if you have nothing to sell, you do not arrange free trade on all commodities. Your market will be overrun. Our textile industries are shut down for obvious reasons, that what is coming in comes in at a cost lower than what we are producing. So these are the things to pay some attention to. Why is it that every year millions of tons of apples, the apple you and I eat, is destroyed in the US and probably in some other countries in order to keep the price stable and the farmers are paid? It's not that it's taken and given to refugees in Africa, destroyed. Why are you doing that? Can you move in on the, on the apple market? That's just Apple, among other things. So coming on to the question of reciprocity, I ask, what is this wonderful expatriate job Nigerians are doing outside? Okay, Britain, any country decides to retaliate, you can do without Nigerian nurses in some places. You can do without Nigerian players in some places. And the bulk of Nigerians outside the country, without any intention to be offensive, are not doing any job that requires fantastic skill. Driving, being a janitor, attending to old people. So rather than invent this, there could be a backlash. We ought to consider reciprocity. Reciprocity, you have nothing to take to the village square and you agree that your kitchen should be raided. No. Remember Muritala's speech in 1976? Africa has come of age. If Nigeria is coming of age, structure itself, where to be a disaster. If the government finishes making this pronouncement, enforcement begins, and there's no strategic program layout to ensure compliance without victimizing anybody. So the question of reciprocity is easy to invoke it. Meanwhile, at the time it was signed, did people really understand its full implications? Look at what we are suffering here in West Africa because of also free movement that will allow me to take my cattle from Sierra Leone all the way to this place in order to ensure African integration, causing trouble all over the place, and we are blaming our own Fulanis when in fact more than 70% of the mayhem is not caused by what you might call actual Nigerians. So let's dismiss these illusions. Bilateral agreements that will kill me? With all due respect, this point must be made. That reciprocity is right, reciprocity is real, but it must be mutually beneficial. Why do we have the problem of flight exchange with UAE?
Professor Okey Ikechukwu.
The UAE crisis with, yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we're completely out of time. Executive Director, Development Specs Academy, Professor Okey Ikechukwu, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.